2 weeks ago, with a completely nonpartisan, very sincere attempt. The bill that we called the Shutdown Fairness Act, to simply pay the federal workers who we were requiring to work. With a completely nonpartisan, the finest among us, members of our military, people in federal law enforcement, TSA, the air traffic controllers who keep our skies safe. Now, when I was asking the Senate to proceed to that bill, the senator from Maryland offered an alternative. He called it the True Shutdown Fairness Act. The main difference is his was only going to be for 1 year. My bill's permanent. Permanently stops using federal employees and the American public as pawns in these sick partisan games. The other difference was my bill is focusing on the people we were forcing to work. His bill added furloughed workers. So on the floor 2 weeks ago, I said, if you're serious about passing this bill, if you're serious about stopping, and he said we can't punish federal employees for our dysfunction. If you're serious about that, I told the senator from Maryland, vote to get on the bill. I will include that. I will convince our conference to include furloughed workers, get on the bill, we'll amend it, we'll get this passed, we'll start paying people. He rejected that offer. Now, we started having discussions. His staff immediately acknowledged the fact that my bill did not in any way, shape, or form impact the President's authority in terms of who determined who was furloughed, who gets, included in reduction in force. It was silent. Even though they falsely accused my bill of giving the President greater authority, it didn't. I came to the floor again today to pass an amended bill with furloughed workers. By the way, a bill that is now supported by the American Federation of Government Employees. I believe that's the largest public employee union, the Federal Managers Association, Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, National Air Traffic Controllers Association. We're going to have the senator from Texas come down and talk about what is happening with air travel as we speak. The International Association of Firefighters, the Association of Flight Attendants. These are public sector unions that generally don't support Republican legislation. What they particularly like about my bill is the fact that it's permanent. It prevents federal workers, and quite honestly, the broader American public, from being used as pawns, again, in these sick political games being played right now with their lives. So, in a few minutes, we're going to proceed to vote on a motion to proceed to my original bill. That's how this works. The leader voted no, so he can bring it up for reconsideration. So we have to bring that bill up. But we already have the language for the substitute amendment, which includes furloughed workers, that has been vetted by, quite honestly, offices, both Democrat and Republican Senate offices, by the Office of Management and Budget, by the public sector unions who have come out in support for it. This is a bill that is ready for prime time. This is a bill that is ready to be passed tonight. Now, it was unfortunate that we couldn't pass it by unanimous consent, because had we done that, the House is on a 48-hour callback, and they will come back. The Speaker has already said they will pass this in the House, and we can get our military members, air traffic controllers, these federal workers who keep us safe, we can get them paid. So again, I'm just asking, I'm actually pleading with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to please vote to proceed to this bill. We will substitute an amendment that includes furloughed workers. We can pass this tonight. If we vote to proceed, we can then vote for unanimous consent to waive all the time agreements, and we could even pass this yet tonight. Make our skies safer. But I know the senator from Alaska has a few words to say, and I know the senator from Texas will as well. So I yield to the senator from Alaska.
Thank you, my colleague from Wisconsin, Senator Johnson, and I've been proud to work with him on this bill over the last couple of weeks. The way this came to the floor, Senator Johnson and I were making the case in the conference. I had a bill that actually was a bill about paying our troops. Imagine that. You wouldn't want to pay our military during a shutdown, including the Coast Guard. Senator Johnson came to me and said, hey, Dan, I got a broader bill. Let's pay everybody who's required to work to keep us safe in America. So I said, great idea. Let's do it. So this is the Shutdown Fairness Act. Senator Johnson already talked about what it does. It's very, very simple. If you are required to work because your job's important, primarily because you're keeping Americans safe, then you should be paid. We have a great example right here. All these Capitol police officers right now keeping us safe right here on the Capitol, they're not getting paid. Air traffic controllers, TSA, keeping us safe right now in America. Senator Cruz is going to talk about what they've been going through. They're not getting paid. They should be paid. And of course, our military. President Trump has worked magic to keep them getting paid, but that's going to run out soon. So this is a very simple bill. There's nothing more American than paying people for their hard work, especially when the federal government is requiring them to work. So what happened? Oh, and by the way, Senator Johnson mentioned it's well over 200 groups now. I have the long list of public employee unions, the Teamsters, private sector unions, all kinds of organizations across America are saying to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, pass the short-term CR, but also pass this bill. So what happened? When we worked this 2 weeks ago, there was a number of Democrat senators who came to us and they're very interested in doing it. Because it makes sense. How could you not be interested in doing it? We can negotiate health care and these other issues, but the men and women in the federal government who are working without a paycheck, you've been hearing stories about the FAA guy driving an Uber because he's got to pay his family. He's not getting paid. And he's had a really important job as an air traffic controller. So we thought our bill was going to pass. A number of Democrat senators were like, hey, we agree with this. It's 2 weeks ago. So what happened? Here's what happened. The same thing that's been happening every night. The minority leader, Senator Schumer, and the Democratic leadership is pressuring the other Democrat senators, don't do it. Don't do it. The pressure comes on them. It's happening right now. The pressure comes on. Don't do it. We got to make sure the left wing of the party's happy. You heard Senator Schumer recently that we're, quote, winning. We are winning the shutdown. I'll tell you who's not winning the shutdown. By the way, I have no idea who he's talking about when he says we, but I'll tell you who's not winning the shutdown. The men and women in America who work for the federal government who aren't getting a paycheck and are required to work. So that's what happened last time. Democrat senators are going to vote for our bill. And the leadership on the Democratic side, because they want to use these people as leverage, convince them, pressure them not to vote for it. So I hope my Democrat colleagues, at least 9 of you, actually it's 8 of you, have the courage to look at your leader and go, you know what, Chuck, sorry, I'm going to pay the Marines. I'm going to pay the Navy. I'm going to pay the FAA. I'm going to pay TSA. And we're certainly not going to use them, as Senator Johnson said, as pawns. Because right now they're being used as pawns. So here's the deal. To my Democratic colleagues, 2 weeks ago, a number of you were going to do this. We had discussions. And then you kind of got pressured to not. Show some courage. Walk up and vote with us to pay the men and women in America, federal workers who are keeping us safe and haven't gotten a paycheck. There's nothing more American than that. Have the courage to do it. I yield back to my colleague from Wisconsin.
And I want to thank the Senator from Alaska. He has been so dedicated. He's been so tenacious in making sure the finest amongst the men and women of our military get paid, and then signing on to my effort to broaden this to all federal employees. Again, as you said, they shouldn't have to go to food banks. They shouldn't have to drive DoorDash to pay their child's tuition or to feed their families. This is ridiculous. But we had a chilling report from the senator from Texas, the chairman of the Commerce Committee, in terms of what's happening with air traffic control in terms of our skies. But before we turn to the senator from Texas, we're going to go to the senator from Wyoming has a few words to speak on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Johnson for his dedication to try to pry the federal workers who are being used in what is a political battle, and I want to excuse them from a partisan political battle that is not of their making, so they can go back to work and serve the American people. So what we have here is a political standoff between Democrats and Republicans in Congress. It has nothing to do with the air traffic controllers. Some of them are Democrats, some are Republicans. It has nothing to do with any other essential or furloughed federal worker. Some of them are Democrats and Republicans. Some of them probably agree that we should shut down the government so insurance companies can make billions more dollars off the American taxpayers under Obamacare. Some of them are Republicans and think that we should open the government and work out this health care mess after we open the government. But regardless of that, they're not in a position to make those decisions. We are. So here we are, in the longest shutdown in government history. The Congress is responsible for it. It's political, it's not policy-driven. So since we're going to argue about politics and who's winning and who's losing and who's setting themselves up to have the next president or win the midterms, instead of worrying about whether the airways are safe, whether WIC is funded, whether SNAP is funded, whether workers are funded, whether the military is funded, since we're going to fight over who's going to win the election a year from now, let's excuse the people who are not responsible for this dysfunction from our dysfunction. That's what Senator Johnson is trying to do. Now, we all agree, Democrats and Republicans, that this is not fair to federal workers, people who are in the military, who are air traffic controllers, who are essential, who are furloughed. It's not fair to them. We all agree. What Senator Johnson is doing is finding a way that we can be together on a bipartisan basis, excuse the federal workers from this mess, let them be paid, and let us go on with our absurd partisan political dysfunction if that's what we want. If we want to fight about health care, It's my opinion we ought to do it after we fully open the government. But if we're not willing to do that, let's at least let the federal workers off the hook. I applaud Senator Johnson. I applaud Senator Sullivan. I applaud Senator Cruz. We want to be able to keep Americans safe who are getting in airplanes every day. We want to keep Americans safe who are working in the military. They don't make very much money, especially those young first and second year military employees. And some of those have young families. Some of those have spouses. So I'm telling you, they don't make much money. And then you withhold their pay. Those are the people that are working paycheck to paycheck. Let them out of our political dysfunction. Don't make them suffer for our political misfunction and dysfunction. I want to also thank any Democrat who will listen and be compassionate towards your federal workers in your districts. This is wrong for those of us, whether we disagree about health care or not, whether you want to fund billions of dollars to give to insurance companies for a broken health care system, fine. We can have that debate. But don't penalize the federal workers for our dysfunction, our disrespect for them. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.
I appreciate the remarks by Senator from Wyoming. I know people are already coming down here to vote, but there are no time restrictions here. This is extremely important. We have a number of senators that want to speak to this issue. We should give them time to speak. Hopefully, to convince our colleagues on the other side to, again, be fair. Think about what your vote means to people that don't want to be used as pawns. Now, I believe the senator from Texas, our chairman of the Commerce Committee, he's got some pretty, as I said, chilling information to relate to the American public based on what is happening if we do not pay air traffic controllers. Senator from Texas.
I thank Senator Johnson. It is day 38 of the Schumer shutdown, the longest government shutdown in the history of the United States. Now, Senator Schumer told the world, quote, "Every day gets better for us." Senator Sullivan asked, who's the us? I'll tell you who the us is. This is a partisan political show. It happened because in March, the Democrats decided to be reasonable and allow the government to stay open. And the extreme left wing of the Democrat Party got furious, and Senator Schumer nearly lost his job. And now the government is shut down because the Democrats want to show the radical left wing in their base that they really, really, really hate Donald Trump. Now, on the Democrat side of the aisle, there's a talking point we actually had in the Commerce Committee yesterday. One of our Democrat colleagues said, there's a Republican president, there's a Republican Senate, there's a Republican House. This is the Republicans' shutdown. And I don't know who actually produces those talking points for Democrats, but every one of them, word for word, says the identical thing. Well, I tell you, I spoke shortly thereafter, and I said, you know, every witness in a court of law, before they testify, they're sworn in, and they're asked that their testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I said what my Democrat colleague just did there failed part number 2, the whole truth. You're right, there is a Republican president. You're right, there is a Republican House, and you're right, there is a Republican Senate. What the Democrats also know is that under the Senate rules, It takes 60 senators to vote to fund the government. They all know that. That's not something they don't know. And it's not an accident that they don't mention it. Why do we have a shutdown? Well, let's count. There are 53 desks on this side of the Senate floor. There are 53 Republicans, which means the government cannot be funded until at least 7 Democrats decide we're going to fund the government. By the way, this is not a new development. When Joe Biden was president, 13 separate times, we passed a clean continuing resolution. What does that mean? We had a 60-vote threshold then, too. That means Republicans could have done this garbage any of the 13 times under Joe Biden, but we did not. They didn't have 60 votes. What was different when Joe Biden was president is Republicans voted with the Democrats to allow the government to stay open. And by the way, in March, the Democrats knew that was the responsible thing to do. It does not take much on the magic Google machine to get video of every one of these Democrats saying on TV, government shutdowns are reckless, they're irresponsible, they're wrong. They all know that. But you know what they're counting on? I look up and the press gallery is virtually empty. They're counting on ABC, NBC, and CBS lying to the American people. They're counting on CNN lying to the American people. They're counting on MSNBC lying to the American people. This is not complicated. 14 times the Republicans on this side of the floor have voted to open the government. And 14 times Democrats have voted to keep the government closed. And then, after they vote to keep the government closed, the Democrats walk out to the reporters and say, gosh, I can't believe the Republicans closed the government. That's when a reporter is actually supposed to do something really radical. It's called report. The person telling me he or she is upset at the government shutdown, why did you vote 14 times to keep the government shut down? Now, there are lots of aspects of this that are painful. But there's one in particular that is impacting American families all over the country, which is any family that is traveling for work, traveling to visit a sick relative, traveling to go to a funeral in a family, traveling to go on a family vacation. There are right now over 50,000 TSA agents. Many of them are going to work. They're not getting paid. They missed their paycheck. There are right now more than 14,000 air traffic controllers. Many of them are going to work. None of them are getting paid. That means they're trying to figure out, their last paycheck didn't come, they're trying to figure out, how do I pay my mortgage? How do I pay my rent? How do I pay my food? How do I feed my kids? How do I take care of medical bills? You know what the answer from the Democrats is? Every day gets better for us. If you're hurting and not getting a paycheck, Senator Schumer's answer, I do appreciate his doing the Mr. Burns tent with his hands. I wish he'd started off with excellent. But that is, in fact, his quote, every day gets better for us. On Wednesday, there were over 15,000 flight delays. On Wednesday, there were over 600 canceled flights. Delta Airlines has called on the Democrats, vote to reopen the government. United Airlines has called on the Democrats, vote to reopen the government. Southwest Airlines has called on the Democrats, vote to reopen the government. American Airlines has called on the Democrats, vote to reopen the government. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association has called on the Democrats, vote to reopen the government. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the administrator of the FAA. It was chilling. As everyone knows, the FAA announced that it is putting in place a mandatory 10% reduction in flights in the 40 largest airports in America. What the administrator of the FAA told me yesterday on the phone was why. And here's what Administrator Bedford said. He said, last Friday, which was Halloween, half of the busiest 30 air traffic control facilities were short-staffed. That includes New York, Austin, Newark, Phoenix, Washington, Nashville, Dallas, and Denver. I want you to listen to this next statistic. Nearly 80% of the air traffic controllers in New York City called out. They did not show up to work. Nearly 80%. Senator Schumer represents New York City. Nearly 80% of the controllers called out on Halloween. There were rampant delays. The FAA said the aggregate data, the whole national airspace system, looked okay. But then they deaggregated the data, looking at the 40 biggest airports in particular. It painted a very different picture. Here's what the administrator of the FAA told me. Pilots filed more than 500 voluntary safety reports about air traffic control problems they were encountering. Air traffic controllers that were fatigued, that were tired, they were making mistakes. And what's the Democrats' views? Well, there's an old line that a gaffe is when someone in Washington accidentally tells the truth. You heard Chuck Schumer say every day gets better for us. Here's what one Democrat aide told CNN. Another senior Democrat aide said, as long as public perception is in their favor, the party will not concede short of, quote, planes falling out of the sky. That's out of the words of the Democrats themselves. Let me tell you, as chairman of the Commerce Committee, part of our responsibility is to oversee the FAA and to do everything possible to ensure safety. Turning to my Democrat colleagues saying, this is not a joke. First of all, the shutdown happened because Senator Schumer had to demonstrate he was tough, so he didn't get primaried by AOC in New York. Then the next threshold was the No Kings rallies. They had to show they were tough enough that when radicals were marching in cities across the country, they were as angry as the blue-haired, angry radicals. Then we had Election Day. They were going to keep everything shut down to Election Day because it energized their base. And then Democrats won elections in the very blue state of New Jersey, the very blue state of Virginia, and the insanely blue city of New York City. And suddenly Democrats said, holy cow, our really left-wing voters like it when we shut the government down. Are there any Democrats on that side of the aisle for whom responsibility matters? Or is every one of them proud to say, we will keep it shut down until planes fall out of the sky? God forbid that comes to pass. Over 500 voluntary safety reports about air traffic controllers. You got air traffic controllers driving Uber to pay their bills. And here's the good news. We can resolve it right now. Senator Johnson's bill that we will vote on in just a few minutes is very simple. It says any federal worker that goes to work will be paid. If you have to work, if you're a soldier, if you are manning the wall, keeping this country safe, you're being forced to work, you'll be paid. If you're a Border Patrol agent, if you're an FBI agent, if you're a TSA agent, and you have to work, you'll be paid. And if you're an air traffic controller and your job is literally keeping, Mr. President, your children and my children safe when they get on an airplane, you will be paid. And to those in the media who persist in repeating Democrat talking points, understand this. The vote right now, if we vote yes, the air traffic controllers will be paid. If we vote no, the air traffic controllers will not be paid. So every Democrat who votes no is saying we will not pay the air traffic controllers. What does that mean? There are roughly 45,000 commercial flights a day in the United States. The 10% reduction that the FAA has put in place will be roughly 5,000 flights a day that will be canceled. Now, if you assume 100 passengers are on each flight, I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician, so I'm going to make the math simple. 100 passengers, 5,000 flights a day, that is more than 500,000 Americans who will have their flight canceled each and every day the Schumer shutdown continues. More than 500,000. And millions more will have their flights delayed. So it's a simple choice. It is a simple choice. Do you want to pay the air traffic controllers or not? But I got to tell you, you better be ready to talk to your constituents who said, why was my plane canceled when I was going to see my sick mother? Well, because I, Democrat, voted against paying air traffic controllers. That's the answer. You won't like giving that answer. But I'll tell you what, that's a lot better answer than if you have to look in the eyes of someone whose family was killed because the Democrats get what they are explicitly asking for, which is planes falling from the sky. The Schumer shutdown, if you are a left-wing partisan Democrat, you say every day gets better for us. I'll tell you who us ain't. It ain't the American people, so do the right thing because every one of you knows it's the right thing. Vote yes, pay the air traffic controllers, and end this ridiculous shutdown. I yield the floor.
The senator from Texas for his sobering remarks. The chamber should be full. It'd be nice if our Democrat colleagues were here to listen to that. I'm hoping they are listening to him on their TVs in their office. God, I hope it literally doesn't take planes falling out of the sky. Tonight, you can continue your shutdown, but you can vote to pay the air traffic controllers, so that is far less likely. If you vote no, and God forbid it actually happens, can you live with yourself? I came to the floor 2 weeks ago in as nonpartisan fashion as I possibly could, begging Democrats to pay people that are forced to work, that are keeping our skies safe, that are keeping our nation safe. 2 weeks later, we haven't done it. This isn't partisan. Search your conscience. Ask yourself, honest to God, if a plane has fallen out of the sky. I'm not saying it's because of air traffic control, but you heard 500 safety instances. Our air traffic control system is already antiquated. Can you live with yourself if another plane falls out of the sky and more people needlessly die because we were short of air traffic controllers? I know Senator from Alaska has a couple more comments, then we'll turn it over to the Senator from Florida.
Well, I just want to thank Senator Cruz, Senator Johnson, for coming to the floor and making this very strong case. And it's about safety, and it's about the American way. There's nothing more American than paying people for the work that they do. We all know that. Again, Senator Johnson's bill is a simple bill. It's about paying the federal workers who are required to work to keep us safe. All these jobs we're talking about are jobs that keep the American people safe. Of course, the military is a big part of this bill. They epitomize the federal workers who are keeping us safe, and they epitomize courage. So do many of our federal workers as well. So I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle just show a little bit of the courage that our military displays every day all over the world. Just a tiny bit of that courage. Again, to my Democratic colleagues, we know you're getting a lot of pressure from your leadership. Senator Cruz did a great job of explaining the origins of that. By the way, it has nothing to do with health care, it has nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with appeasing the far left of the Democratic Party, which is rising. So we get that you're under pressure. But you all know that voting for this bill is the right thing to do. I know my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. They're good people. As Senator Johnson just said, have a little bit of conscience and a little bit of courage, the kind of courage that our military displays every day, and vote for the Shutdown Fairness Act right now. Every one of you knows it's the right thing to do, and I hope you do it.
I want to thank the senator from Alaska. Yield now to the senator from Florida.
The senator from Florida.
All right. So, Mr. President, first thing I want to do, I want to thank all the senators that are speaking tonight. I can't imagine voting not to pay somebody. You know, in my state, here's what's happening. We have people that are not getting food. At church on Sunday, the pastor asked if we would actually bring in a whole bunch of food because they knew because of what the Democrats are doing, people would not get their food stamps. So all the food banks, they needed way more food. I was talking to a reporter today in Tampa, and he said the line is unbelievable at one of the food banks he was at in Tampa today. And when I think about these people that are not getting their food stamps, I think of my mom. So my mom was a mom of 5 kids. So we lived in public housing. I never met my dad, and she had to go to farm-to-market stores and ask for food. She never got food stamps, but she had to go ask for food. So just think about what's going on around our country. There's people right now worrying about if they're going to feed a 2-year-old little kid. Can you just imagine what that mom's doing? I mean, I just can't imagine how anybody ever could vote to shut down the food stamp program to not feed kids. Then let's think about all these people not getting paid. So I'll give you my experience. When I was 19 years old, I got married. I was an E2 in the Navy, and I was making $332 or $334 a month. So that same person today, and my wife and I, she was making $75 a week as a legal secretary. So those people, if something like that, I didn't have $25 in the bank. They wouldn't have said, "Oh, it's okay not to pay the rent." Any costs we had, no one would have said, "Oh, don't worry, you don't have to pay it now." And so that's what's going on with our military. They have mortgages. Their kids have school costs. Their kids want to play sports. They might have medical bills. And my Democrat colleagues are saying they don't care. It's just like, did they ever live that life? Did they ever live the life that they are worrying paycheck to paycheck how they're going to pay for food, for the rent, for a mortgage? Do you think all the lenders are going to say, "Oh yeah, we know the government shut down, so you don't have to pay your mortgage"? So I just don't know how you could not have a heart to open up government. I mean, we can have a policy disagreement every day, and we should. But to not make sure people get their food stamps, not make sure that people are showing up today, as Senator Cruz said, trying to keep us safe in the skies, our military that's trying to keep our freedoms, and the Democrats don't care if they get paid or not. Now let's think about it. Since I got up here, this is my 7th year, I've had a bill that says no budget, no pay. Right? The Democrats have blocked it, including yesterday, because they want to get paid even though they are making the decision that other people don't get a paycheck. They're not willing to give up any of their pay because, like one of them said, he has a mortgage. Why would he be expected to give up his pay? Well, they're doing it every day. to offer federal workers. I just can't imagine doing that. So what I'd say to my Democrat colleagues, open the government. Pay our workers. Make sure people get food, have food on the table. Don't ever, ever, ever in your wildest dreams do that to people in our country. It's wrong to do what you're doing. Senator Schumer came out and said he had a proposal. It's a joke. It's a complete joke. And I'll tell you why. Let's think about what they want to do. For us to be able to make sure that we start paying people, they get food stamps, they want to make sure insurance companies continue to get rich. So their proposal doesn't do anything. So right now, people don't lose their Obamacare subsidies. It's people that make over 400%, that's over probably $128,000, $130,000 a year, get subsidies for their health care. You could be a millionaire. You get a subsidy. So you say he wants to make sure millionaires get a subsidy for people to possibly get any food. Then he knows that Republicans are not going to continue to support a program that pays health care for illegals. That's wrong. Has taxpayer paying for abortion. That's wrong. Has taxpayers paying for trans surgery. That's wrong. Making sure there's about supposedly 4 to 5 million people don't even know they have these subsidies because it's just going directly to an insurance company with no responsibility by a consumer. All you have to do to sign somebody up is know their name, their birth date, their address, sign them up, insurance companies get all the money. Why would we ever support something like that? So I want to thank my colleagues. I can't imagine. It's heartless to not make sure people have food. It's heartless to make sure people don't have money if they're working. And so if the Democrats vote against Senator Johnson's simple bill to pay people that are busting their butt to keep our freedoms, keep us safe, do all these things, I don't know how you can go home and feel good about what you're doing. I yield my time.
I want to thank the senator from Florida. I see the senator from Michigan. I believe he wants to speak to this bill. We will have the last word, but if he wants to get ready, I don't know.
Let the chair. I'll recognize the senator from Michigan, and then we can go back to the senator from Nebraska.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, let me first say that there's something that we all agree on, Democrats and Republicans here in this chamber, is that we want federal employees to be paid. It's simply unacceptable that they have to work and come to work every day, do their job, and not get paid. That's why we got to end the shutdown as quickly as possible. We're focused on doing that. But that's not really exactly the total story behind the Johnson bill. I have legislation to pay federal employees now. We could vote on that now. I offered it in a UC request from my colleague from Wisconsin and said we have a bill to pay all federal employees right now. No strings attached, no language that gives the president more power, more flexibility to do things that we should not want him to do. But my Republican colleagues don't want to have that bill. Senator Van Hollen, another colleague of mine, has a bill to pay it. It has complete support of Democrats. Let's pay them. We have two bills that if we put on the floor right now, we could pass. If my Republican friends really want to do it, we could pass it with 100 votes. And I'm happy to, it's my bill, but any of you can sign it. I offered it to my colleague from Wisconsin. It could be your bill. Give it. I don't need any authorship of it, but it's a bill that does exactly what my colleagues across the aisle are saying, just pay federal employees. That's what it would do, and yet that's rejected. So why? Well, there's a little bit more in this bill. In fact, the Johnson bill before us actually creates an unlimited and permanent slush fund for President Trump to use. You're not going to get support here from us to transfer what should be congressional power to be able to determine when we want money spent, it actually gets spent the way it should be. It's not about passing a slush fund to the president. The president could justify the transfer of this money elsewhere. This is something clearly the administration wants because it's going to give the White House more power. The bill adds presidential authority by it omits the regular safeguards that we include in normal funding bills to ensure that money actually goes where Congress intends. Now, we've been seeing a lot of that. The president basically is just thumbing his nose at Congress every day. Unfortunately, my Republican colleagues say, well, that's okay. If the president doesn't want to listen to the Congress, that's okay with them. You know, we are a co-equal branch of government. We're elected by the people back home to represent our people as senators. We're not here just to rubber stamp a president. I know a lot of my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, I'm surprised because a lot of really great people that I have a lot of respect for, and yet we see the president constantly run over Congress, and it's crickets on the other side. No pushback from my Republican colleagues, either here in the Senate or in the House. There's actually, in this bill, there's no explicit guarantee or requirement to actually pay out this money. The administration could sit on this appropriation. We're just blank check appropriation for employees, but the administration can just sit on it for some, or those particular programs they don't like. That's why in a normal appropriations bill, we put in language to prevent that. Now, granted, the president has been ignoring Congress, but at least we put it. We're saying these are the rules. Congress has the power of the purse. It's Article 1 of the Constitution. And yet a lot of my colleagues don't seem to take that to heart. So most appropriations bills, including the current House continuing resolution proposal, actually includes restrictions on how funding should be used. The Johnson bill includes no restrictions. And we know that Trump has shown that he will abuse the budget process in very novel ways. He has said that he will refuse to pay back pay to workers, even when Congress has explicitly said it. This bill hopefully does address that. He's transferred money illegally to pay for his political priorities, and he impounds money whenever he finds any kind of wiggle room to do that. So in a sense, this bill is a Trojan horse. It's there to say we're going to help federal employees, but it's really continued power for the president. I've heard my colleagues say that, the federal employees are being used as pawns. That's what this bill does. It's using federal employees as pawns to give the OMB and the president a whole lot more power to use a slush fund of money in any way he chooses. We know the OMB director, Russ Vought, likes this bill. We know what Russ Vought's about. In fact, I think there was a leaked speech that Russ Vought had. We mentioned this in the committee, and my colleagues, I appreciate them saying how wonderful federal workers are. But this is what the OMB director, who says this is really a good bill, the Johnson bill is a really good bill. He said, we want the bureaucrats to be trauma. They have to be affected by trauma. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want to put them in trauma. I hope my Republican colleagues called out Mr. Vought when he said that, because you care so much about our employees. I appreciate that. But when folks in the administration say things like this, please say that is wrong, that we really do care about you. Not when you're trying to put a bill forward that's going to give the president an unlimited slush fund. Let's be real. If you want to pay employees, which I hope you do, if you want to move forward, then take a bill that we know has the kind of guardrails that our appropriation bills normally do to make sure the money is actually spent as we intend in Congress, which is the way it's supposed to work under Article 1 of the Constitution. I still believe in the Constitution. I still believe that we are a co-equal branch of government. We are not simply a rubber stamp for the president. And if we don't change that way, that's how you lose the checks and balances that our founders cared so deeply about. As our founders were debating the Constitution, they didn't trust any of us. They knew, they're politicians too. They knew you can't trust anybody. So they figure we're going to have three branches. We're going to have the judiciary check the Congress and the president. The Congress will check the presidential power. And Article 1 is the Congress. They thought the Congress was the most important one. But they kind of assumed that the Congress would actually exercise its power and check presidential power, not just hand more to them with a smile and then use false pretexts in order to give that money. So that's what this bill is about. And, you know, I've tried to work with Senator Johnson. I will always want to work with him. We've worked on a number of bills together. We have language. Again, the bills that we have that I've introduced, which is the Military and Federal Employees Protection Act, straight, clean bill. Talk about union support. Every union has supported my legislation. Every union has supported Senator Van Hollen's. And we're now getting unions. Unions are starting to read the fine print on this bill right now. So we have AFSCME that's now come out against it. We got the SEIU that has just come out against it. We have the AFL-CIO that has just come out against it. We have the IFPTE that just coming out. And our union friends are going to read the language of this bill and they're going to like, oh, we should have read the fine print. Like, yes, it's really important to read the fine print. So we can't support this bill. We can support a bill that pays all of our employees, but it's got to be one that has the types of protections that we have in every other appropriations bill that we try to pass out of this body. So I'm going to oppose this, but hopefully we can find a way to work together. We have 2 bills ready to go we can pass today, but with this bill, we are going to object to this one.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Is the senator from Wisconsin?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure what planet the senator from Michigan comes from, but here in planet Earth, when you read the actual language of the bill, none of these FANA provisions exist in there. But I will go through those point by point before we call for the final vote. Right now, I think Senator from Nebraska has a few points he wants to make.
Senator from Nebraska.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today, we heard about an offer from the minority leader. It shows just how unserious he and the Democrats are. That offer is full of horse hockey. It has things in it that Republicans cannot accept, and he knows it. And my colleague from Michigan, Democrat from Michigan, was just talking about power, because this is what it's about. He mentioned power. A number of other folks have talked about leverage. They need to have this shutdown for leverage. A number of Democrats have said this. But what I'm here today is to talk about people, not leverage, not power, people, air traffic controllers. These are letters that I have received from air traffic controllers, handwritten letters that are talking about what they are going through right now because of the minority leader's shutdown. Let me just read you some of these. My wife suffers from a chronic autoimmune disease that without her medication would cripple her. Our monthly copay for her specialty medication is $2,800 a month. We have less than 2 weeks before her next round of medication is due. Our situation is not sustainable, even with pulling money from our savings. That from one of our air traffic controllers in Nebraska. Here's another one. Each shutdown gets harder than the last. The mental stress of the unknown gets harder each time. With my growing family and medical bills for my family, it gets harder every time. Both my children have neurological disorders that require constant monitoring and medical care. I take pride in my job and the service we provide here at Omaha Approach Control. As a patriot and a veteran, I take my federal oath seriously. I will always continue to do my job and keep the skies safe and expeditious. Or here's another one. Myself and my family, to include my 3-year-old daughter, are struggling to make ends meet. I now have to decide between putting food on the table, paying my mortgage, paying my car note, and many other things I need to survive. Are the Democrats deaf? Do they not hear from the people that they're putting in these situations? This is their shutdown. This is their Biden budget they're not voting for. They voted for this 4 times over the last 19 months, and now they won't because their far left wing tells them not to. We have patriots here who are suffering. Why don't they show some of the courage that these people are and stand up to their far left wing and vote for this bill so that at least the people who are working can get paid? Is that so much to ask? That we pay the people who are actually trying to keep the skies safe? The Democrat staffer was earlier quoted as saying, we're going to do this till planes start falling from the sky. Well, folks, We already heard that the FAA is going to cut back 10% this week on the number of flights because of safety concerns. But it's the people that are the air traffic controllers and our law enforcement and everybody else who is working in a federal job that is not getting paid are paying the price for the minority leader shutdown. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield to my colleague from Wisconsin.
Senator from Wisconsin.
And I appreciate the comments from Senator from Nebraska. I think the senator from Utah would also like to speak to the bill.
Mr. President, I want to commend my friend and colleague, the senator from Wisconsin, for his outstanding work on this bill, the Shutdown Fairness Act. Senator Johnson has seized on something very important here. We're surrounded by people in this very building and throughout the United States and across the globe, people who are faithfully, valiantly working for the United States government. Now, some of them are staffers in this very room, not being paid. Some of them are the police officers we greeted on our way in who are keeping the Capitol Hill complex safe. Some of them are soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardsmen all over the world who are serving the United States government at risk of life and limb to keep us safe. And there are countless others in different occupations who are not being paid. Why? Well, they're not being paid because our friends on the other side of the aisle are wanting to expand government yet again. They may think that this is the right message, that this is a winning message. This is not. It's not the right message. It's not a winning message, even for them, because it highlights something. It highlights the danger in putting too much trust, too many responsibilities, too many functions in the United States government. So much so that when a crisis like this emerges, and the Schumer shutdown now drags well into its second month, they see that what the American people have previously regarded as a service performed by their government to them is now being held over them to extort even more money out of them, under threat of planes falling from the sky. And we're told by Democrat after Democrat on television interviews and elsewhere, well, it's okay. It's okay because this is leverage. This is our leverage. Well, what do they want to use that leverage for? They want to use it so as to paper over the failures, the abject failures of Obamacare, this law that has succeeded in doing exactly one thing: enriching large health insurance companies while making all Americans poorer. Premiums have skyrocketed, coverage has diminished, quality has completely tanked as a result. They know this, they understand this, they see premiums continuing to increase year after year after year. And so what do they want to do with it? Well, they want to spend a lot more money moving forward. Money at a time when the U.S. government is already $38 trillion in debt. Money to hide, to conceal what it is that Obamacare is doing to the American people. When in fact, what Obamacare has done is diminished the health care options that the American people have. It used to be that you could negotiate with a health insurance company and buy a health insurance policy. But Obamacare in many ways...
My first contender,
what was once health insurance
too dumb.
illegal.
My second, too expensive.
Again, we need to allow
Wow,
a
Taco!
willing customer
I can't
to pay a
believe I'm
willing
seeing you with the
insurer for a health
piano.
insurance
But
policy.
Taco did
Rather than
everything
an
except playing
Obamacare
piano.
health
He
plan
sat on
very
it,
often.
filmed it, lifted it. It was obvious that
Poor guy, he
Just as to
doesn't
the
know
cost
what to do.
And as to the profits, the bottom line of these huge healthcare companies. So yeah, they want to take this to extort the American people in their position of vulnerability at a time when we're told planes may start falling from the sky, at a time when people's airplane tickets are being rendered valueless because a lot of these flights are not going to be able to be made, and all kinds of other problems are happening, while at the same time, our federal workforce is not being paid. These are not the right people to punish for the failures of Obamacare. Don't let them carry that burden. Don't make them do it. They didn't do this to the American people. Obamacare did. Let's fix Obamacare. Let's make it legal again to have health insurance, actual health insurance, not that sort of bastardized form of health insurance that emerged from Obamacare's endless regulations that result in diminished quality, lower coverage, and endlessly higher premiums. Mr. President, this shutdown has gone on long enough. This shutdown should come to an end, and it should come to an end by the very generous offer made by Republicans time and time and time again to continue at spending levels that until just months ago were the Democrats' own spending levels. It's not enough for them. We've got to end the madness and end the shutdown. At the very least, even if we're not to end the shutdown, we should pass Senator Johnson's bill. We should do that tonight. We should do it right now. Because regardless of what you think we ought to do with Obamacare or any other aspect of government, these workers who have now gone for some time without a paycheck, they should not be required to make this sacrifice, especially when you consider what it's for. Hiding the true cost of Obamacare. That is shameful. Again, I thank and I commend Senator Johnson and his team for putting together this legislation. I'm proud to support it. I wholeheartedly endorse it, and I plead with my colleagues to vote for it, and let's get these workers paid. They deserve nothing less. Thank you.
And I want to thank the senator from Utah for his remarks.
Senator from Wisconsin.
Mr. President, I don't want to spend all the time refuting all the misrepresentations from the senator from Michigan in terms of what phantom provisions he claims are in my bill. There's no slush fund. It is completely silent on presidential authority. I know some people want to reduce authority. Well, that's a bill that won't be signed. If you want to pay the federal workers, if you want to stop punishing them for our dysfunction, if you want to stop using them as pawns in this political game, that's a demand you have to drop. The money appropriated in this bill will go to pay workers. That also was a false argument. But if you're not quite satisfied with the language, it's been out there and we've been trying to work and get feedback for 2 weeks, and we've gotten excellent feedback from leadership, from discussions on both sides of the aisle, from OMB trying to perfect this thing. The solution is get on the bill. Get on the bill and offer amendment. Keep talking to us. Don't close it down. Now, we heard from a number of our Republican colleagues. We heard from Senator from Michigan. Now, obviously, passions are running high. There's a great deal of frustration, certainly on our side, when the other side simply won't take yes for an answer. But I came down here 2 weeks ago in as nonpartisan stance as I possibly could be. Because as Senator from Michigan stated, we all agree that these people ought to be paid. So the way to do that is not offer a bill on unanimous consent that has no chance of being signed into law. The way to do that is to vote to proceed tonight to this bill. If we could iron out differences, we could yield back time and get this thing passed. The Speaker of the House said he'll already come back and pass this. So we are so close. I realize they're going to be hard partisans. I know liberal unions have now come out against this, but the bulk of the public sector unions are for it. They prefer my bill over anything else that they may also support it because this is permanent. This ends using federal workforce and, quite honestly, the American public as pawns in these partisan games for all time. Again, the American Federation of Government Employees, the Federal Managers Association, the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, National Air Traffic Controller Association. And again, I hope our Democrat colleagues listen to Senator Cruz's chilling and sobering remarks just a few minutes ago, the International Association of Firefighters and the Association of Flight Attendants. This bill has support because it makes so much sense. It is fair. So we had 3 Democrats join us 2 weeks ago. There are 2 other Democrats who have voted for the House CR. That brings us up to a total of 58. Now, they vote against this because we didn't have furloughed workers. We've added furloughed workers. So hopefully those two will join us. I have talked to enough Democrat senators trying to get their input, trying to get this passed. I know there are Democrat senators that want to vote for this bill, that can vote for this bill. So, putting all partisanship aside, again, I want to appeal to your better angels. Search your conscience. Sign on to a bill. Vote for a bill that ends using federal workers, the American public, as pawns. The senator from Maryland said last week, let's not punish federal workers for our dysfunction. But I think my closing argument has to be to go back to what the senator from Texas was talking about, air traffic control in that situation. 500 safety issues reported recently in our skies. Search your conscience. Can you imagine? I mean, honestly, think about it. Imagine what the one Democrat staffer said, that we're going to cling to this until planes fall out of the sky. Think about how you would feel if, God forbid, a plane, another plane, fell out of the sky and people died. How could you live with yourself? Now, again, you can continue the shutdown. I mean, that's your political choice. You can continue to vote against the very reasonable House continuing resolution. But you can still vote to pay federal workers. You can vote to make sure that air traffic controllers get back to their stations and keep our skies as safe as possible. You can vote to dramatically reduce the chance that a plane will fall out of the sky. We just need two more of you. Two more of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle who are working with, quite honestly, folks on this side trying to end the shutdown. Just two of those that I spoke to that I thought would vote for this. I'm begging you, two more. Let's get on this bill. Let's pay federal workers. Let's make our nation safer. Let's do the fair thing. Let's do the right thing. Let's vote to proceed to this bill and get it passed. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Whip.
Mr. President, I withdraw my motion to proceed.
The senator has that right. Motion is withdrawn.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to the motion to reconsider the vote on cloture on the motion to proceed S3012.
Questions in the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion's agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider the vote on cloture on the motion to proceed S3012.
Questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion's agreed to. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the motion to proceed to calendar number 191 S3012, a bill to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of accepted federal employees for periods of work performed during a lapse in appropriations and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to S3012 to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of accepted federal employees for periods of work performed during a lapse in appropriations and for other purposes shall be brought to a close upon reconsideration? The yeas and the nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Marino, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Blackburn, Bozeman, Britt, Budd, Cotton, Kramer, Cruz, Curtis, Daines, Ernst, Fisher, Graham, Grassley, Hawley, Husted, Johnson, Kennedy, Langford, Lee, Lummis, Marshall, McConnell, McCormick, Moody, Marino, Mullen, Ricketts, Risch, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Sheehy, Sullivan, Thune, and Tillis. Senators voting in the negative: Bennett, Heinrich, Kane, Kim, Murphy, Murray, Padilla, Peters, Schatz, Schiff, Schumer, Van Hollen, Warner, and Welch. Ms. Slotkin, no. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Ms. Collins, Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Banks, aye. Mrs. Hyde-Smith, aye. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Reed, no. Ms. Blunt-Rochester, no. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Warnock, aye. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Coons, no. Ms. Rosen. Ms. Rosen, no. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Crapo, aye. Ms. Also Brooks. Ms. Also Brooks, no. Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin, no. Mrs. Capito. Mrs. Capito, aye. Ms. Duckworth. Ms. Duckworth, no. Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy, aye. Ms. Warren. Ms. Warren, no. Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono, no. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Young, aye. Ms. Hassan, no. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. Sanders, no. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Whitehouse, no. Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Mr. King, no. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Gallego. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Markey. Mr. Markey, no. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Ossoff, aye. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Lujan. Mr. Lujan, aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 43, 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion upon reconsideration is not agreed to. Majority Leader.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate be in a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection,
I understand there's a bill at the desk, and I ask for its first reading.
Clerk will read the title of the bill for the first time.
S. 3166, a bill to rescind unused COVID funding and reduce the deficit.
Madam President, I now ask for a second reading, and in order to place the bill on the calendar under the provisions of Rule 14, I object to my own request.
The objection is heard. Bill will be read the second time on the next legislative day.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, it stand adjourned until 12 noon on Saturday, November the 8th, that following the prayer and pledge, the journal proceedings be approved today, the morning hour be deemed expired, the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day, and the Senate be in a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Madam President, if there's no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it stand adjourned under the previous order following the remarks of Senator Cassidy.
Without objection. Senator from Louisiana.
Madam President, I'm going to try and present a way forward for Democrats, Republicans, and Americans out of our current situation with a different proposal than people have already thought of. Now, the government should have been shut down for 38 days, and tomorrow we're going to vote again, and tomorrow the vote will again fail. But in Americans, Congress is frustrated. We need to open the government. So, if to open the government we need to talk about health care, let's talk about health care. Let's have a conversation in the family. We have an affordability crisis, and health insurance is part of it. Now, this is personal to me. I'm a doctor, practiced in a hospital for the uninsured and the poorly insured for 20 years. And many of those people that came to see me were middle-income Americans who could not afford their medical bills and could not afford insurance. I want to see this solved. But if we're going to solve it now in this present circumstance, we need to move beyond entrenched ways of thinking that have settled us in our camps and refuse to allow us to listen to the other person. And I thank some of my Democratic colleagues for being here. We've got to be creative. Now, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, tried to make health care affordable by giving insurance companies more money. The enhanced premium tax credits, EPTC, is the latest example. It sends, next year it would send $26 billion to insurers, hoping that families see smaller bills. But that actually doesn't make health care less expensive. And for some, it actually makes the health insurance more expensive if you're not getting subsidized care on the exchange. So we can do better than just papering over the cost with subsidies. Instead of paying insurance companies to manage our money, let's trust Americans with a pre-funded, flexible savings account worth as much as the enhanced premium tax credit that they would receive. Let me repeat that. A pre-funded, not out of their salary, but pre-funded from the federal taxpayer, equivalent in value to the enhanced premium tax credit that they would receive. Now, let me make it clear. I'm not speaking for the Republican caucus. I'm not speaking for President Trump. I'm not even speaking as the Help Committee chairman. I'm speaking as a senator and as an American that sees us at an impasse and is trying to think differently about how we can move forward. So, I'm going to present to my fellow Americans an idea that hopefully will move us out of this stalemate and go forward. And I'm going to try and speak as if I'm speaking to the American back home. Here's the problem. Under the enhanced premium tax credit, if your insurance premium goes up, if the insurance company decides to pay more, they just get more subsidy from the taxpayer. Now, insurance companies get paid no matter what, and it doesn't matter how expensive the tab is. There's absolutely no incentive to bring the cost down. There's no transparency as to what the care really costs, and there is absolutely no reward for the family that goes to a place which is less expensive. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. you're hiding the fracture, but you're not fixing the broken bone. Let's fix the broken bone, which is high health care costs. So, put simply, the enhanced premium tax credit does not empower patients. It enriches insurance companies. By the way, they're important. We need them. But if I have a choice of empowering you, the American, or enriching an insurance company, I and we should pick our fellow American. Now, imagine a different type of help. Not paying the insurance company another subsidy, but putting money pre-funded, not out of your salary, but roughly equal to the enhanced premium tax credit, put that into an account that you control. Every eligible American citizen on the exchange would receive this federally pre-funded flexible spending account. And it would work like the prepaid health account you use for real-world health expenses. It would actually have more flexibility than your current insurance proposal. You go to the dentist, it can pay for dental care. You go to the orthodontist, it can pay for your orthodontal care. It can pay for eyeglasses, which typically insurance does not pay for. Prescription drugs, medical supplies, your deductible, your copay, it can pay for it all. Now, it wouldn't pay for insurance premiums. This is about you spending directly for your health care costs, not about enriching insurance companies. It would pay for the care that families actually use. That's what a pre-funded flexible spending account actually does. I keep emphasizing pre, because I mention this to people, and they say, wait a second, this has to come out of my salary. No, this would be the money that would go to an enhanced premium tax credit, and instead it goes into this account that you control. Now, it seems complicated for some. I go and I mention it to them. I say, oh, boy, this is something different, Bill. This is a great idea, but, it's kind of like, just too different. 72% of Americans getting their health care through some government entity are offered flexible savings accounts. 47% of people getting insurance through their employer are offered FSAs. This is something that is used by millions of Americans already. So what I'm proposing is just to give this option to people on the exchanges. And by the way, the federal government already offers flexible savings accounts to people on these small business exchanges. Members of Congress, we are on the Obamacare Small Business Exchange. We have the option of choosing an FSA. My family has one. And the Department of Treasury already has an office through which they funnel money to pay for these flexible spending accounts that I, as an individual, choose to get. So what we're speaking of is just offering to people on the exchanges, that on the individual exchange, that which is already offered to people on the small business exchange, and paying for it by the same mechanism in which it's already done through that exchange. Now, still, there's going to be some bureaucracy involved. But if there's any president that can overcome the inertia of the bureaucracy to make it happen by January 1, 2026, is Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump is the man who, when it was told it would take 18 years, 10 years, 18 months to come up with a vaccine and a program to prevent COVID transmission, he did it in 10 to 11 months. This president can overcome the inertia, and we have a running start because the federal government is already doing this. Now, let me make clear the key differences between enhanced premium tax credits and federally funded flexible spending accounts. First, who gets the money? Under the enhanced premium tax credit, insurance companies. Under this, it is patients and families. What can it be used for? Here, the premium tax credits go for insurance premiums. Period, stop, full stop, boom, it goes to the insurance company. Here, real care. Your doctor visit, your deductible, your copay, your dentist, your glasses, your prescriptions, that sort of thing. Who makes the decision? The insurance company. Just wait and fight with them about a pre-authorization. Under the flexible spending account, you make the decision. You have the power. And lastly, does it lower cost? No, it is pretty clear if we continue to fund insurance companies no matter what they pay, it drives up the cost. In contrast, if you empower the patient, that mother is going to find the most affordable option. It's been studied. If you give people something that they perceive as their own money, they hunt for that bargain. By the way, if they go and they find out that the cash price is cheaper than what the insurance company would charge them, they will have the option of using this for the cash price. So we have reforms in here that give the patient even more power. Good thing about that, as the patient saves money, so does the taxpayer, and that's a good thing. So the pre-funded, flexible spending account doesn't treat people like dependents of the government as do the enhanced premium tax credits. It treats you like a capable consumer who knows what is best for your family. You decide where to go for dental work. You decide your pharmacy. You decide whether to pay the cash price or the negotiated price that the insurance company offers you. And instead of Washington paying insurance companies to manage your day-to-day care, you manage it with fairness, transparency, and flexibility. Now, some will ask, won't this cost money? Of course. In the first year, it'll be about the same amount as the enhanced premium tax credit. And my Democratic colleagues should like that. But the individual would be getting better value through the federally pre-funded FSA because she is spending it on that which she actually needs as opposed to up to 20% of it going for overhead, profit, and administrative cost. It isn't just fiscally responsible, it's common sense. Who wouldn't rather have their money in their own pocket than for the insurance company to dictate how they spend it? So here's the choice before us. In conclusion, we can keep paying insurance companies to paper over the higher cost behind confusing bills in a system which actually raises the cost for some, or we can give Americans the tools, we can trust our fellow Americans to pay for their care directly at fair prices with transparency. If you will, it puts patients first, not insurers. It encourages competition. It rewards smart choices. And it begins to make health care truly affordable, not by inflating subsidies, but by unleashing the power of the consumer. Let's stop writing blank checks to insurance companies. Let's invest in our fellow Americans. I say this, we have to first open the government. This takes writing some legislation. We have to open the government. But we have to be willing to take a risk to solve a problem and not be afraid to do something different. I have seen in our chamber right now a hunkering down. We've not been able to solve it, so we're not going to try anything different. We're just going to wear the other side down until they wave the white flag. Now is the time to be creative. I'm a rock-rib Republican, but I will say what I just offered is not a Republican solution. It is not a Democratic solution. It is an American solution. Let's open the government. Let's work together. Let's fix health care by giving the American more power, not the insurance company. Thank you.
Senator
A question.
from Washington. Without objection.
Thank you. Will my colleague yield for a question? Absolutely. Thank you. I noticed in your proposal, you're talking about something that you would hope to affect January of next year. Is that correct?
That is the goal, to have this ready for next year.
What is the senator from Louisiana's interpretation of how the market controls the? You're trying to create a market mechanism where you're giving the consumer the same amount of money you would give them in the tax credits to make the insurance more affordable only through a health savings account. But how do you know once you gave that in the health savings account, the market is going to not still have an increase above that amount? So how do you think this affects the market?
Wonderful question. First, this is a flexible savings account, not a health savings account. There is a legal distinction. I want to make that. When the enhanced premium tax credits are not renewed, we know the insurance companies have already set up their rates. And so the consumer, our fellow American, will be choosing from the offerings that have been made by the insurance company for them to choose from. The difference would be, and they will see, by the way, that the policy for someone at 400% of federal poverty level costs about $2,500 more a year than it otherwise would have with the enhanced premium tax credit. This would be supplemental. We would say to that individual, you're at 400% of federal poverty level, your policy is $2,500 more a year, you will get a flexible spending account pre-funded to help offset the cost of this. Now, if it's my family, I would say, I got $2,500. Maybe instead of going for a silver plan, I'll go for a bronze plan, because now I can offset the higher deductible with my flexible savings account. And because I'm going for a bronze plan, my premium will be lower. But that's trusting the American people. We are plugging into the current insurance market. We're actually not changing at all how it functions.
Would yield for another question. I'm assuming that you think affordability is the key. I certainly think affordability is the key. Nobody wants to subsidize expensive health insurance. We want to create market mechanisms to drive down the cost of health insurance, not just spend money to buy expensive insurance, whether you buy it through the tax credit or buy it through a health savings account. We want to create those mechanisms. So again, all of this is going to take place in November and December, right now and December. So somehow you would make some calculation in January about what would go into a savings account, or you're thinking of a flat number?
That's a wonderful question. No. If somebody, the federal government knows, or put it this way, many states have calculated what would be the insurance rate with an enhanced premium tax credit, and what will the insurance rate be without the enhanced premium tax credit. It has been calculated for our fellow Americans what the value of an enhanced premium tax credit would be if they signed up for a certain policy in their state, given their age and their health condition. They know that. The question is whether they get the credit or not. Well, they're not going to get it, so the policy is going to be higher. And this, under the plan, if we can agree to it, they would then get the FSA in an amount equivalent to that which they did not receive as a payment to the insurance company. Instead, it would be a payment to the flexible savings account they would have, and that they would then use it for these services.
If the senator would continue to yield, the issue is that, so much of this is already set up, and I think you're trying to be creative in a way to, instead of the Alexander Murray cost revenue sharing, I think you're trying to figure out something that would get people the same amount of money to make them whole over the next year or two. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I would say what we're trying to do is make people, as the market is out there, whole over the next year or two. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're happy to debate how we make health insurance more affordable after that. That has been a goal of our side of the aisle for decades. We want to make it more affordable. Now, we all get to be measured about how successful we've been on that, but I think that we're going to continue to strive to make it more affordable, and really are proud that we drove down the uninsured rate with the Affordable Care Act, because we covered more people, thereby lowering costs because not having so much uncompensated care. So I'm glad to see somebody saying, let's talk and let's put a proposal out there. Happy to continue to have a dialogue about any idea that helps us move forward. But the issue is that so many Americans are in this moment right now making these decisions, and how you affect that for the next 2 years is the biggest question. And you and I know, if we said, okay, we're huddling tomorrow, or the Finance Committee is huddling tomorrow, then everybody would be up here trying to convince us not to do various things. So the question is, how can we protect the marketplace for the next year or two in the simplest way, and then get about us going back to business, talking to each other, trying to work out what are the best creative ideas for lowering health insurance costs. I don't know why we haven't done a PBM bill. I mean, my colleague Senator Grassley and I have a bill. I think you have a proposal. Other people have a proposal. We're letting PBMs get away with so much in the expense of prescription drugs. I don't know why we don't spend all our time driving down the cost of health insurance. So I'm happy to work creatively on ways to protect the market over the next 2 years so that we can finally get to some creative discussion. So I thank the senator.
Thank you for the questions, and let me just respond very quickly. I think the beauty of what I'm proposing is it fits in very nicely with the insurance markets as they currently are. It doesn't require anything to change between now and January the 1st. It is too late to change those plans and those rates. It is just too late. This does not require those rates to change. This would be something which could benefit our fellow Americans next year and could be implemented by then. Yes, the bureaucracy is going to have to work hard. President Trump can get them to work hard. You mentioned several other reforms. I am in total agreement. We should be working, again, Democrats, Republicans, that's what we need to do to get something done, in order to come together for a set of proposals that will lower health care costs. And both as a member of the committee, we both serve on Senate Finance, as well as the chairman of the Health Committee, it is my intent to do that. We've got to do that. But this can work this year for Americans who are going to be on the exchanges, and that's my hope. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Under the previous order, the Senate stands adjourned until 12 tomorrow, Saturday.
Are way down from what they were last year. Inflation is almost non-existent. We have inflation down to a very low number, whereas Biden, as you know, is the worst inflation in the history of our country. So we're doing very well. We have a shutdown, as you probably know, because the Democrats have gone, they're crazy. They're crazy, but they don't care if they hurt the country. But we've approved it 14 times. We've approved a opening up 14 times, and they keep rejecting it. And I guess maybe they will again. Let's see what happens. They want to have a lot of bad things happen, bad things for our country. We're not going to give $1.5 trillion to people that came into our country illegally. We're not going to do it. To people who came from prisons, they came from mental institutions, they're drug dealers. They want to give them medical care.